Did any of you try this? I think I asked you to do that, right? Why are you so quiet?
Sure, I did try it, but I don't think I was able to do it.
Nafio Pradhan. Nafio Pradhan. Is it, I mean, am I saying right?
Yes, sir.
So did you try it? And what did you get? Nafio Pradhan, did you try it? I didn't hear anything if you said something.
Uh, no, sir, I didn't.
Okay. Is there anyone else who tried that?
So is the answer 4.5%?
4.5. I have to do that. I don't think so.
So I'm getting 0.045. So 4.
Okay, so let's give it a try. Any questions about the other two? I think they're quite straightforward, right?
Yes, sir.
Then this one, how do we measure efficiency of capital utilization? That's 1 over C, right? 1 over incremental capital output ratio. How would you interpret this variable C? This is incremental capital output ratio. Can you, we know this is the ratio of these two variable K and Y. Can you give us any other interpretation? Okay, before we do that, when is our midterm? First midterm.
Sir, the midweek I think it starts from 14th. It's still 18th. 14th is Sunday and 18th is Thursday.
So when is I mean, we are scheduled to have our midterm.
Since it's Sunday, Thursday, I think it's gonna be Thursday, 18th.
18th November, right?
Yes, sir.
I'm just going to close it because otherwise I might forget. So midterm 1 is on November 18th, 2021. The syllabus, what are the things we're going to cover in the midterm? I'll announce that later, okay? For now, just stick to this 18th November date. Okay, so yeah, the ratio that I was talking about, so C, the capital output ratio. How can you think of any other interpretation of this variable other than saying it's a ratio? So this K over Y indicates how many units of capital you need to produce 1 unit of output. Again, this ratio tells you how many units of capital you need to produce 1 unit of output. So let's say this ratio is equal to 3. That means to produce 1 unit of output, you need 3 units of capital. If it is 4, that means you need 4 units of capital. So do you think having this ratio higher is better or lower is better? What do you think?
Higher is better.
Why is
So
that?
Lower is
lower, I
better.
think.
Who thinks it's lower is better?
Lower.
So
Lower is better.
So Mashhurina Tasrian. That's a difficult name. Mashkurina Tasrian. Am I saying your name right?
Yes, sir.
What you said lower is better, I guess, right?
Yes, sir.
Why?
Because maybe we will need less capital to produce more
Yes,
output.
to produce 1 unit of output, you need fewer amount of capital, or with the same amount of capital, you can produce more output, right? That's what lower numbers would mean. So basic that what it so this is so you can use this ratio as a measure of efficiency of capital utilization. So 1/c, you can so this is how we interpret utilization of the efficiency of capital utilization. So the number higher this number, the better, right? It would indicate capital is being utilized more efficiently. So now if we go back to the question, you see um, 1/5 of the efficiency of capital utilization is wasted. So basically we are being inefficient here. So even though C, like we are losing some efficiency because of we're wasting some efficiency, so that would indicate effective C, or effective incremental capital output ratio, is not 2, it is higher than 2. Am I clear? I mean, is it clear the idea here?
Yes, sir.
So if let's say 1/c is the efficiency of capital utilization, but since some of the efficiency is wasted, so the effective capital utilization, let's call it 1/x. So x represents the effective incremental capital output ratio. So how much of the efficiency we're losing? 1/5, right? So that means
Yes.
if our efficiency is 1/c, 1/5 of this 1/c is wasted, right? So that means the remaining efficiency is 1/5, sorry, 1/c minus this one, or 1/c times 4/5. So that is the remaining efficiency that we have. So if effective efficiency, effective capital output ratio is 1/x, so that means this is our effective efficiency, which is going to be equal to 1/c times 4/5. Any questions here?
No, sir.
So if we solve for x, what do we get? So if you solve for x, that is likely to give you 1.5, I believe. Yeah, sorry, 2.5. So if your effective incremental capital output ratio is 2.5, the growth rate of output is 0.15 divided by 2.5 minus the 0.03. So what do we get here?
Sir, 0.03.
So that means 3%. So growth rate of output is going to be 3%. Any questions?
No, sir.
All right. So let's get to the Okay, so structural change theory of our theory of structural change and development patterns. This idea dominated was one of the major after the discussion sometime in the 70s. People, and as I mentioned, Lewis two-sector model is one of the most famous model in this framework or in the structural change theory area. So structural change theory basically says that underdevelopment is because of underutilization of resources arising from structural or institutional factors originating from both domestic and international conditions. Can So taking the surplus labor from the traditional sector to the modern sector can help the economy grow at a faster rate and become more developed. At some point, the traditional sector would also be modernized to deal with the potential labor shortage or high cost of labor. So we have two sectors, as I mentioned. Okay, I think I have asked you what is subsistence economy in one of the quiz, I think, right? In the first quiz.
Yes, sir.
So, subsistence economy basically means people generally produce goods and services for their own consumption, not for marketing or not for selling not for commercial purpose. So when you take the labor or workers from this traditional sector to modern sector, at some point they have to kind of modernize the production process, and that is going to lead to higher productivity, causing increased return from the agricultural activities. So there will be more commercial production rather than this subsistence sector will be transformed into a modern commercial sector. So traditional sector, yeah, I think I already talked about this or no? Anyway, I don't remember. So traditional sector's characteristics include zero marginal product of labor, which we are going to so workers that have zero marginal product of labor is going to be referred to as surplus labor. So can someone tell me what is marginal product of labor? Let's say Imandev Sharkar. What is marginal product of labor? Imandev Sharkar, I don't know if you're saying something, but so Sakline Mostak. So what is marginal product of labor? Nabil Hassan.
Sir, can I answer?
Yeah, let's say Nabil Hassan. What does Nabil Hassan say? Okay, go ahead. I think Atikul Islam was saying something. Go ahead, Atikul Islam.
Sir, increase in total production due to adding one additional labor.
Can you repeat that?
Increase in total production due to adding one additional labor.
So yeah, it's a little bit confusing the way you're defining it. So basically,
May I, sir?
yeah, go ahead.
It is a change in output due to employing one additional labor.
Right. So basically, the additional output that you produce by employing one more worker, that would be the surplus labor. Okay. Sorry, that would be the marginal product of labor. Now, at some, if you have workers that has zero marginal product, that means he is working or she is working, but is not contributing anything to the total product or total output. Um, Mashrubuzzaman was asking for some examples of subsistence sector. So basically, you cannot really have, if you think about our country, you cannot really think of a sector as subsistence sector entirely, but you can have farmers or individual families who are kind of subsistence farmer. Basically, they will be producing rice or other crops for their own consumption. If you think about, let's say, 100 not 100 years ago, even 50 years ago, a lot of families would be producing goods for their own consumption, not for selling it in the market. So that would be kind of a subsistence economy. So nowadays, um, even still, if you look at the small farmers in rural areas, many of them still produces rice or other types of products mainly for own consumption. So that would be kind of, you can think of them as the subsistence farmer. Okay, so coming back to this marginal product of labor. So if you have workers with zero marginal product of labor, that means we are calling it a surplus labor or surplus worker, because even if we withdraw this worker from the production activities, it is that withdrawal of this worker is not going to reduce the total output in our example, right? So let's say, for example, we have uh, we have some workers here. We have, or let's say labor. We have labor here and output here. So we let's say, for example, when you employ one worker, we get 10 units of output. We employ two workers, we get 5 units of output. Three workers, oh sorry, 15 units of output. Three workers, let's say 18 units of output. Four workers, let's say 19. Five workers, 19. Six workers, 19, and so on. So what is the marginal product of our first worker? That's one, right? The second, for the second one, that's 5. Third one, that's 3. Second, fourth one, 1. How about the marginal product of the fifth worker?
Zero.
How about the sixth?
Yes.
0, right?
So
So
can it be negative?
so technically speaking, it is possible to have negative marginal product, but that's it is. We wouldn't expect people to employ workers to have negative output. We wouldn't even expect people to employ workers with zero marginal product, right? But when it comes to subsistence farmer, people don't really look at the or think about the marginal product probably. So the wages that we would expect farmers to pay here are going to be their average product of labor rather than the marginal product. Okay, so the point I'm trying to make here is that, so you see the marginal product of the fifth worker is 0, sixth worker 0, seventh worker 0, and so on. So if I withdraw sixth worker from our production activities, is it going to change The level of output produced, total output.
No, sir.
So that's the surplus labor. If we drop the fifth worker, is it going to change our total output?
No,
No.
sir.
So that's why it's a surplus worker. Okay, so that's how, so marginal product, when marginal product of labor is 0, you can drop that worker without losing any of the output that you're producing. So that is one of the features that we would expect in traditional sector. And wage rate, as I was talking about, wage rate in a rural area is going to be equal to the average product of labor rather than the marginal product of labor. And if you think about the modern industrial sector, so we have output. So output is it depends on obviously on labor as well as capital and technology. It uses more sophisticated capital equipments for production purposes. And generally, we're going to start with urban wage rate higher than the rural wage rate. And employer can actually hire, as long since urban wage rate is higher than the rural wage rate, employers can hire as many workers as they want from the rural sector. They can hire as many workers as they want, and workers from the rural sector would be willing to work for this urban employer because wage rate is higher in urban sector. So in this case, the labor supply curve for the urban employer or the modern sector is going to be a horizontal line, as long as the economy has surplus labor. So what happens is, since labor supply curve is a horizontal line, so they're going to obviously hire a number of workers. So the demand for labor is going to be determined by the marginal product of labor in the urban sector. And that is going to determine what should be the level of output and the total amount of workers employed. And the capitalist is going to earn some profit, which that capitalist is going to reinvest in the economy. So this reinvestment in capital equipment, the reinvestment in capital equipment by the capitalist or the urban employer is going to increase the demand for labor in the urban area again. So increased demand for labor will hire more workers, and more workers will move to the urban sector, as long as urban employer can continue to do so as long as they have uh, as long as the rural sector has surplus labor. So this is our diagram. It's we can use this one to explain the idea here. The left side represents urban sector, the right side represents um, the agricultural sector. Sorry about that. So urban modern sector and agricultural sector. So the upper panel represents total products, and the bottom panel represents marginal and average product curves, or labor demand supply sort of things. So the lower panel is derived from from this total product function that we have in the upper panel. Okay, so if you think about it, so I don't know if you can read this. So I'm just going to mark some point here. Then I'm going to ask you some questions.
Sir,
Yes.
can you zoom the picture?
Yeah, let me see if I can do that. Is it better?
Yes, sir.
So the figure that you see, I have put some mark on the right side, the total product function. So in the agricultural sector, so output keeps rising till LA amount till LA amount of labor employed in the agricultural sector. So that means marginal product up to LA is positive. Now, what happens to marginal product to the right side of LA? Anyone?
Sir, does that mean that employing additional labor is no longer contributing to an increase in output?
So what would be the marginal product of labor?
So 0.
0.
Yes. So to the right side of LA, marginal product of labor is going to be 0. So those are the surplus workers, so surplus labor, okay? So you can hire these workers as long as wages are higher in the urban sector. So we are basically plotting this the marginal and average product curves based on this total product function in the lower panel. And agricultural wage rate, as I mentioned, is so agricultural wage rate is determined by the average product of labor. Now, it might seem a little bit difficult to understand, but if you think about the subsistence sector, it's not really that difficult to think that workers are paid their average product. So, in subsistence farming, most of the farms are family farms. So, you can think of those families sharing meals or buying clothes or for their members. So, as if you are dividing the total product by the number of family members. So that way you can think of it as wage rate being determined by the average product of labor.
Sir,
Yes.
sir, what is the M representing in the left side of the graph? M1, M2, M3.
M is for manufacturing sector, okay, or modern sector.
Got it, sir.
And A is for agricultural sector or the traditional sector in the rural areas. So as you can see, marked on the right side here. So this is your surplus labor. Since marginal product of labor is 0, so we have surplus labor on the right of LA. And since workers are hired, workers are paid higher wages in the urban sector than the rural sector wage rate of WA, workers will be willing to work in the urban sector. As a result, the labor supply curve in the urban sector is basically a horizontal line. So if you think about the labor demand curve, so this is the first line, TP sub M. This is a marginal. This is a total product curve in the manufacturing sector. So based on this marginal total product curve, we derive the marginal product line D1 D1. So this first line, downward sloping line that you see, this is the marginal product of labor, which is also the demand for labor. You know, I don't know if you have done 301 or not. So marginal product curve basically represents the demand for labor or demand for capital. Okay. So intersection of the labor demand curve and the labor supply curve is going to determine the equilibrium employment in the labor market. in our employment equilibrium level of employment in the urban sector. And as you can see, point F represents that point. L1 amount of worker will be hired, and workers will be paid WM wage rate. So WM times LA is going to be the cost of labor, and the remaining so this is going to be the wage bill payment, and the remaining the triangle shaped area. Oops. The remaining triangle shaped area is the profit for our manufacturer. Any questions here?
No, sir.
So the manufacturer is, as I mentioned before, so manufacturer, one of the assumptions that we have here is that manufacturer, this capitalist is going to reinvest in capital. The profit is going to be reinvested in capital. So if that is the case, the level of capital stock in the economy is going to go up in the modern sector. So this was the original total product function with KM1 amount of capital. Now, because of the reinvestment of profit, capital stock rises to KM2, and the new total production function would be a higher line, upper, the line shifts upward, as you can see here. So the corresponding marginal product of labor based on this second line that we just found here with higher amount of capital, the corresponding labor demand curve is going to be D2 line. As you can see, this upper line here, this is the marginal product, which is also the demand for labor curve. And as you would expect, the new intersection at point G represents the new equilibrium with L2 amount of workers, and the profit for the capitalist is this triangle, almost like a triangle, this area. And the capitalist is going to reinvest this profit again, and that is going to shift this line, total product curve upward again, and the marginal product of labor, or the demand for labor, is going to be D3 again. So you would end up with higher, you'll end up with this new equilibrium here. So this process is going to continue until all the surplus labor from this agricultural sector are absorbed in the modern sector. Any questions? Okay. So if you have, yes.
So maybe I have missed this part, but how can we find out the profit in the agricultural part?
So in the agricultural sector, all the workers take everything that they have in the economy. Okay, so you don't really have to. So the profit that you were talking about, there is no. So profit is equal to 0 here. So workers are getting everything. So they are sharing the average product. So if you have 100 units of output and you employ 10 workers, so that is going to be, or let's say 20 workers, then they're going to get 5 taka as their salaries or wages, and that means the entire 100 taka worth of food or product will be shared among the workers. Okay.
Got it, sir.
Okay, so now okay, interesting. So this process will continue until we absorb these surplus workers from the agricultural sector. So what happens after once we absorb all the surplus workers? So if you withdraw one more worker, that is going to reduce the level of output in the agricultural sector. So output goes down. So that means you have to give them some extra incentive to shift to move to urban manufacturing sector. Otherwise, they might not be interested in that. So that is known. So when the modern sector absorb all the surplus labor from the agricultural sector, that situation is known as Lewis's turning point. So basically, all the surplus workers are absorbed in the modern sector. So you, to attract more workers from the agricultural sector, modern sector employer would have to pay higher wages. So wage rate in the modern sector would start to rise. That means the labor supply curve would become an upward sloping line. And if wage rate in modern sector rises, that would also accompany an increase in agricultural wage rate. So agricultural wage rate will also go up. So this process will continue until, so at some point agricultural sector would kind of run out of run out of enough workers. In that case, they would have to resort to the mechanization. If you remember, I don't know if I talked to you about this. So the economy will, or agricultural sector would move towards mechanization, or uh, using machines as a substitute for labor. In Bangladesh, for example, nowadays people use local made machines for harvesting crops or planting crops. And sometimes, if you think about paddy or rice, for threshing paddy, people use local made machines that reduces the labor requirements, right? So some areas that have labor shortage, or I mean, if you have labor shortage, that would be reflected by a higher wage rate, right? So farmers or families, farmers would be interested to cut down the cost. They might hire the machines. We don't really have very sophisticated machines or equipments, but there are some. We have some people are making some equipments, agricultural equipments, that are, even though not so sophisticated, but it saves some labor. Any questions here?
No, sir.
So I'm going to ask you about this model. So, but again, because some of you might have some confusion, but let me just ask a few questions about the presentation. So how many of you have talked to your group members about your presentation topics? Anyone?
Sir, can you repeat again?
How many of you talk to, you have a presentation, and I think I talked about this in the last class, right?
Yes, sir.
So you have to select a topic.
Yes, sir. My team has selected a topic.
So what is it that you were planning on?
So we are planning on working on gender violence.
Okay, gender
in
balance.
Bangladesh.
Okay.
Yes, sir. So the main topic, the focus would be how the pandemic, in the pandemic, there was an increase in gen domestic violence. So how would this affect the future of our economy? So we'll try
Um,
to explain it.
Domestic violence and the future of our economy. That is going. I think that is going to be a bit difficult.
No, sir. I mean, it's more like we are in the same team. It's like the discrimination that works, like not the violence. Basically, the gender-based discrimination for the pandemic. How women are being been discriminated at their home, and how they are getting married at a young age. All of this factor, like basically the SDG goal 4, we will be incorporating that how will it affect, it might affect Bangladesh's economy in the upcoming
Okay.
years. The employment level, the women participation in the employment level will go down. We would like to present on that topic.
Okay. So you were so basically what you were saying is the negative impact has so COVID has a negative impact, but it has a larger negative impact for women. Probably that's what you were trying to say, right?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes,
Yeah, I
sir.
think this would be an interesting topic to discuss. I look forward to hearing from you about this. Any other group? Sadia Karim, so do you have any data or any data in mind or where you are going to get? I'm assuming that you are going to talk with some data, right?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. We are planning to present data. Like we haven't started working yet, but we have done some literature review.
Did you see any data or any? Did you see any?
Sir, we are.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. We like some of the articles. They presented some values and data. We are trying to analyze them. But if we come with a more reasonable data, we will present that in our presentation.
Okay, so I'm not sure exactly where you will get the data, but definitely if you have the data, this would be something interesting topic to talk about. Okay. Any other groups? Asifur Rahman,
ইয়েস স্যার, আমি একটা গ্রুপে আছি স্যার, ওটাতে আমরা এসডিজি সিলেক্ট করেছি।
which one are you thinking? Okay, so basically, once I open that Excel file, you have to be the first one to choose your topic. Okay, I mean, write down your topic because keep multiple topic in mind because if someone else already take it, you have to switch to a different topic. So keep this in mind. Okay.
So I also had
ওকে
a
স্যার।
question about the Excel file. It's
Yeah.
like in that Excel file, I'm seeing that student ID and presentation topic. So should we write our student ID or the group name?
Okay, let me see. Let me go to. So I think I can start with that file. So let me see if we have it here. Course Excel file. Okay, so here is what you are going to do. Delete this. So here's you don't really have to do anything here. I'm going to delete this one. So I'm going to give you a presentation topic. So all of you will be writing. Since we have multiple members in the same group, so all the members will be writing the same topic. Okay. Presentation. So you are going to write down your. Hold on a second. Do you see a new page? The Excel file. Hello.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Sure.
Yeah, so you got this Excel file, so write down your presentation topic here. Okay, so
Sir,
yes,
sir, can I leave the class? I do have a quiz now.
you have a quiz for what?
From 475.
So you have two classes at the same time?
Yes, sir. This is
That,
my Saturday regular class.
okay, yeah, go ahead, that's fine. I think we should have canceled that then. Uh, okay, so yeah, I think you saw that Excel file. You can write your topic in there, okay? And so do not make any other changes in there, okay? All of you, so keep this in mind. So don't start fighting with other people. So if someone okay, I probably shouldn't remind you this thing. Anyway, so write down your presentation topic in the additional column that I have given you. So I'll see. Any other groups?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So what is your presentation topic?
Sorry, sir. I think there's a lot of background noise because of the azan. It was like why Scandinavian countries have a higher
Yeah,
age
I think.
during.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think in that case we can take a break now. Okay. So let's come back at 4:10. Okay. Come back at 4:10. We'll talk about. We'll start from here.
Okay, sir.
Welcome back, everyone. So, yeah, I think Tashfia was talking. We already discussed your topic in the last class, I guess, right?
Yes, sir.
Anyway, so tell us what you were tell us again what you were doing.
Sir, why Scandinavian countries they have a higher HDI than other countries in
And do you
general?
know where you are going to get the data? I mean, at least for the HTA related data.
So we didn't sit with it yet, but I think
Yeah,
we will
so
be able.
if you search for HDI 2021 or 2020, it will take you to the HDI. It will take you to that site where they publish the report, and in those tables, the HDI tables that you see, they have additional tables in that Excel file that will have the HDI data, but probably not the individual in the index data, but overall HDI value related data or time series you will see there. That might that could be a starting point, and
Yes, sir. You already shared, I think, 2015's data. So what I wanted to do is like analyze and compare like between few years. I don't know from which year to start, but 2020, 2021 is definitely going to be there. But I think I'm going to start from 2015. It's like how
no,
it has changed.
you should start with 2020 because the file that I shared with you. So that was that
2015.
yeah, probably that is from 2015, but you have so the last report is 2020. So why do you want to use the old one, right?
Yes, sir. Sir, like if you ask us to analyze and compare, like how many years will you recommend? Like 2020, 2021's data is probably not available.
I mean, so if
2022.
you want to see why generally Scandinavian countries have higher HDA values, so you cannot really work with just 1 year data, right? I mean, you are saying if the premise that you are the premise that you have is that they generally have high HTA values, that means you have to show us that it happened a long time series, relatively long time series, right? And
Yes.
it's relatively easy to get the data because let me, I mean, at least to get the HTA value data, it's relatively easy. I think I showed you in the last class or so.
Yes, sir, you did.
HDI report 2020. So when you download the Excel file, let me just share the screen. Okay, do you see anything on the screen? You should.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So you have so you can go to HDI data or data center. Let me see, download the report. If you click on the download the report, let's see, what do you get here? Yeah, I think we should go to the data center. So if we go to data center, so we have so HDI here, okay, and where's the data? Let's try this again. Oh, I got that. Sorry. Download the data. You see here, download the data. So go to data center, and a data center has this download the data. If you click on this, you have this full data file. Okay.
Yes, sir.
So all the tables and stuff, and table one has its component, I guess. So you can download the full data file. It has a lot of information, I believe. So it will download in Excel format. So once you download it, let me go back to the HTF file. So the last file that I downloaded, that was HDI. So this is the statistical annex. So there are lots of tables. Okay, so you have these are the HDI values for current for the last year 2020. Then you have
So I can see table 2, trends in the Human Development Index,
right. So
1990 to
basically,
19,
yeah. So basically, looking at these values, you can kind of give us a overview. I think they have the data on all for all the years since 1990, I guess. There is a table: gender development, human development, life expectancy. So you also have life expectancy and other related data here. Um, other information here, as you can see. And so let me get to the table that I'm talking about, just to look at the HDA value for different years. Okay, so let's see dashboard. No, I think it should be somewhere here, table 15. So one of the table actually has, as I mentioned before, has the time series data, just with the HDA total HDA value, overall HDA value. So you can definitely take that information from here.
Oh, yes, sir.
Yeah. Any other groups? Atikul Islam?
Yes, sir.
What is, did you talk to your group members?
Yes, sir. My teammate already discussed the topic with you. Our topic is on.
Yeah, it looks like I was looking, so the data file that I should, I thought I was sharing the whole screen. Hold on a second. Tasvir was saying, yes sir to nothing, I guess.
No, sir, I was talking, I can see the Human Development Report.
No, I was not talking about this one. Stop sharing. Let me share my enter screen. I was talking about the file that I downloaded. So here is the file. So this Excel folder, it has a lot of information. So one of the file has, you see the times, kind of time series data, right? So this one, or there are some other files as well with individual.
Yes, sir, this table was not visible at that time.
Yeah, so I was basically talking about these tables. Anyway, so you can take a look at these tables and start from here. You can download it from that file, okay? I mean, if you go there, so they have a lot of tables here, so you can choose one of these. I mean, you can down. So if you click here, it will take you all. It will download all the tables. If you click on this one. Okay, Atikul was talking about his group. Yeah, go ahead.
Sir, my teammates Sadia and Rafid already discussed about the topic with you.
So gender issues, I guess.
Yes, yes, sir. Gender inequality.
Nabil Hassan. Zakaria.
Sir,
Yeah.
can I talk about our group?
Yes, I was basically looking. It was the first thing I mentioned. Who wants to talk? Okay, go ahead.
Sir, we haven't planned much, but we are thinking about SDG and goal number 3, good health and well-being. So we are planning to find few data on it, introduce few targets, and talk detail about it, and how is the health situations currently in our country, and how
Yeah, so
like
as I mentioned before, so keep multiple topics in mind, because if someone already picked your topic, I mean, it's going to be a kind of competition. Who's going to choose the write down their topic in the list first?
okay, can I just write now? Okay.
You don't, if you want to write it right now, that's your choice. I mean, I cannot stop you, right? Or I'm not going to say you do write. I have given you some time, so you should start writing your topic. Okay. Someone already, I think some people already did that. Yeah. Some people already did that, so you should. Anyway, so let's, I'm probably going to ask you these questions again in the next class. But now let's get back to our discussion here. So any questions that you can think of here? Think about this topic.
No, sir.
Okay, so let me ask you some questions then. There are some criticisms. So some of the criticisms, one of the strong criticism is that the model actually assuming that labor and capital are complementary, meaning if you invest, you will invest. So basically, that would indicate you are going to invest in labor, invest in capital that will accompany employment of labor. However, there are something called labor saving technology, right? Labor saving capital. So if you hire, if you employ, or if you invest in labor saving capital, that could be a problem. So we are saying that the modern sector is going to absorb the surplus labor from the traditional sector. But if modern sector invest in labor saving capital, then that would be a problem, because if let's give.
Are you sharing my screen?
Oh yeah, I'm sharing my. I'm not. I was. I,
So
I
we
thought I
cannot
was
see
sharing my screen.
anything.
I thought I was sharing my screen. Okay. So labor saving investment in labor saving capital could be a problem, uh, because look at this. So the capitalist made some profit, right? In this diagram, if this is the modern sector. So capitalist made some profit. So the capitalist reinvest this profit, but the reinvestment happens in labor saving technology, labor saving capital. As a result, instead of having a rightward shift like this, that will increase labor employment. Instead of this, they invest in capital equipments that are labor saving, so that the line that we have, the labor demand curve, looks like this. So there will, as you can see, labor employment doesn't change in this case, right? So that would be a problem. So this is kind of a criticism of the model. So this model does not really talk about, or is not going to work if capitalists invest in labor saving equipment or capital. So if capitalists invest in labor saving equipment or labor saving capital, so what is the problem here? So it does not absorb additional workers. So modern sector is still growing, right? Because the capitalist profit is going up. So you will have the dualistic economy that you see in the here, one modern sector and another traditional sector. So modern sector is going to get richer, traditional sector is going to remain poor as before. So that is going to exacerbate the situation, the divide that you see between two sectors. In terms of development, so that does not necessarily ensure economic development. Modern sector would be growing, but there will be the overall standard of living for the economy is probably not, because you have a significantly so the traditional sector is going to be unaffected or remain poor, and if capitalists invests in labor saving technology. There are some other criticism as well, if you think about it. So, capitalists might not really reinvest profit. Capitalists might actually send their money to foreign countries to, this is called capital flight. So, people from Bangladesh, sometimes you will see news in the newspaper that people send their money to foreign countries. Sometimes some of them are uh, the kind of legal money sent illegally. Some of them are illegal money sent illegally to foreign countries. Those are not being utilized in our economy. So if you have a significant amount of capital flight, so reinvestment in the domestic economy is not happening. So absorption of surplus labor in the domestic economy is not also working. So this model under this capital flight situation, so you would not really see expansion of the modern sector absorbing the absorbing the surplus labor from the uh, rural sector. You can also have, we are talking about um, labor surplus labor in traditional sector. It is also possible that you have plenty of unemployment in the urban sector. We are also kind of assuming diminishing returns in the modern sector, but that might not necessarily be the case. We can also have increasing returns, which can actually exacerbate the situation. Any questions?
Sir, can you give a brief explanation of the last point? Diminishing, yeah.
So this is going to work like the investment in labor saving technology. So sometimes people might invest in modern sector capital equipment with a significant amount of investment that kind of requires fixed investment to acquire those capitals, uh, which in turn is kind of going to require some additional capital stock, reducing the demand for labor. So modern sector would benefit from this um, increasing returns, but it is not going to accompany a similar development in the agricultural sector. Second, where are we? Okay, so I'm going to skip this development patterns. So this is, I'm going to skip this one. This is not really a theory explaining the development process. This is kind of a description of how a development process or this patterns of development is more like the roster stages of growth. So it basically describes how one economies move from underdeveloped to more developed situation. Then we have international dependence revolution that talks about I can talk about this briefly. So international dependence revolution basically says that the underdevelopment that we see, it's the legacy of colonialism and the struggle or the unequal power distribution and between core and the periphery. So core is, if you think about Bangladesh, for example, the policy making areas, or let's say Dhaka city or the major cities versus the rural areas surrounding this area. So there is always a struggle or always a dualism between this. So basically the center is going to determine what the periphery is going to do. Or if you think about the colonial legacy, um, the power struggle is going to so the international world order is still maintaining some sort of legacy of the colonial that we have seen in the colonial period. So even though we are not colonies, the developing countries are not now actually colonies, but the world order is acting like it is, or the major countries or the people, the influential countries are kind of determining what kind of policies or what should the developing countries be doing, rather than letting these countries work on their own, or find out the best policy for themselves. The legacy of the colonialism. And so that is so whenever mean like the so this is kind of a I mean spend a lot of time on this one. Then we have neoclassical revolution. This somehow dominated the discussion in the 80s and 90s, and has development since then. So this contribution basically focuses on the free, you know, so there are different approaches. So instead of so this counter-revolution, neoclassical counter-revolution challenges the status model, basically, where status model would be the idea that state or the government is going to how what should be used or how it should be produced. So rather than version, the approaches, one approach. So free market approach is saying that government cannot do anything right. So only right. So market should determine market be the best place. The market will can efficient. Okay, so this is not a free market. So Optus has the same idea as the right. So free market basically is the market. Market is efficient in allocating resources the best way. So underdevelopment is the result of misallocation of resources, poor allocation of resources. So government or some price and that sort of thing that is for them. The framework things to what is the price, and you can distribute resources efficiently, know what to avoid and how to use that one to make the best system is in best place to determine what should be produced and what shouldn't be, or what should be the prices. Public choice approach, kind of similar. Market cannot do, or government cannot do anything right. So the smallest government is the minimal government is the best government. That's the idea, because everyone has their own interest. The politicians have their own interest. bureaucrats have their own interests, so they would be acting on the best interest and the activities of the overall development of the country, of the economy. Then we have market-friendly approach. So they still again work kind of so. According to this market trend, free market is still the best option, but there are significant import in the system, significant market failures because of different factors like information on to prepare the market failure. We sometimes need intervention of the government. But other than that, market should determine what should go and how it goes. The most known so the main argument so the main case basically the framework approach intervention by the government is not efficient. If you look at the state organizations, you will see don't function properly, and in many cases, government fails to implement a policy or run the organizations, many organizations efficiently. The solo model is the most one of the most famous model in this new classical counter revolution, and I think we talked about this in 302. We'll talk briefly about this in the next class. Until then, do you have any questions? We don't really have a lot of time, so I'm going to start it now.
No, sir, not yet.
All right, so feel free to log out if you don't have any questions.
Okay, sure.
স্যার
Yes.
এক্সেল ফাইলটাতে হেলথ আর কোন গ্রুপকে চুজ করতে তো দেখলাম না।
So what do you want me to do?
No sir, just I'm trying to be confirmed যে
I'm not looking at the
Okay,
Excel
sir.
file now.
So, I need to speak something.
Go ahead.
Actually, also, I don't have any group still, so what can I do for that? Actually,
I think it's a bit late to talk about you don't have a group.
also, I didn't attend our last class because of my some family issues.